The wait is over. This is the new Bambu Lab flagship 3D printer, the H2D. This is the H2D, and this is the H2D laser. There's also two new AMS units, and there's new attachments like lasers and digital cutters and marker pens and new materials, and let's just get into it. Before we get into it, don't forget, 3D Printing Nerd Studios is powered by PCBWay. 8% off, link in the description. You know what to do. It's an exciting time. This is the new flagship machine from Bambu. I've got notes on my iPad because there's so much to go through. I'm gonna try to cover as much as possible. Okay, the new flagship, the H2D. There's this in the laser version. This has two nozzles side by side. It's got two new AMS units, the AMS 2 Pro and the AMS HT. The laser version includes some cool attachments, a 10 and 40 watt laser module. It also has a digital cutting module and a marker and pen holder for doing digital drawing. And there's this new software suite called Bambu Suite, and it powers the laser side, the digital cutting side, marker side, all of it. So there's so much to get into. First thing though, we're gonna concentrate on the 3D printing side of things. Getting the machine out of the box was easy, and it was in typical Bambu fashion. It reminded me so much of getting the X1 Carbon out of the box. It's packaged really well, lots of material there to keep it safe, even though shipping companies don't necessarily treat these as nice as they should. It arrived safe and sound, no problems, and I was able to get it set up and on the bench running perfectly. Good job to Bambu for packaging these sorts of things incredibly well. Yeah! Well, now let's take a look inside. And it comes with 0.4 millimeter hardened nozzles on either side. And each one of those nozzles will go up to 350 C. This is more than the X1 Carbon, and I think will be very welcomed by a lot of people because there are starting to be some materials that we could print that melt above 300 C, and this is going to be able to do it. You can also get 0.2, 0.6, and 0.8 millimeter nozzles. The 2 is a stainless steel. The 6 and 8 can be hardened so you can send crunchy materials through. I played with them a little bit, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Now, a lot of people are going to be wondering if you can run different size nozzles in either head, and the answer is no. Well, okay, so you can. For example, you can have a 0.8 on the left and a 0.4 on the right, but in Bambu Studio, when you select your H2D machine, if it detects the two different size nozzles, it's gonna make you pick one or the other. You can't use two different sized nozzles in the same 3D print.
Oh, come on.
The left nozzle moves up and down. It's in a mechanical fashion. So it moves up out of the way so the right nozzle can print, and then it moves down into position lower than the right nozzle so that it can print. And there's this little bar that transfers between the left and the right nozzle to keep the oozing under control. And it works really well. If you've seen the nozzle go up and down in a side-by-side fashion before, that's because the Raise 3D Pro 3 has that. And even before that, the Ultimaker 3 has that. Those are two machines that I've used extensively, and this is a better implementation. Now, because you have two nozzles, you're gonna have to perform some sort of offset calibration to make sure that the left nozzle can print in the same space that the right nozzle can. And it uses eddy currents to do the offset calibration. It's totally automagic when it does it. You don't have to print a bunch of lines and then look at them and compare which ones are closest to the other. It just does it. It does it automatically, and it does it well. There is a camera on the nozzle to monitor air printing, nozzle clumping, and purge chute clogging. We don't have access to this camera, at least currently within the Bambu Studio software. It would be neat to get that, but it can monitor those things. So if your poop chute gets a little clogged, it can detect it, which is great. This machine has an active heater, so active heating up to 65 C, and that's very welcome at this point. I believe the X1E has the chamber heater. This gets up to temperature at a decent rate, and it maintains that temperature even in like a cold studio or my garage at home. No worries there. This vent up here, it's really cool. This articulates and pops up when low temperature filaments are being printed. And so this is so you don't have to have the door open when you're printing stuff. You can just pop this open and then it promotes airflow through the filter in the back. Some people might say, oh, another mechanical thing, that's just another point of failure. And I don't disagree there, but in my testing, it was reliable and it popped up when it was needed and it shut down when it should have. So there you go. Now let's talk about build volume. It can be a little confusing, but I think I have a handle on it, so let me show you. On the front right here, it lists the build volume as 350 on X, 320 on Y, and 325 on Z or Z, but there's a word next to it. It says the max build volume. When we talk about machines that have side-by-side nozzles, it means that the right nozzle can't access a certain amount of build space on the left, and the left nozzle can't access a little bit of space on the right side. The head just can't move far enough to do that. And so there's these 25 millimeter sides on the build plate where right can't access left and left can't access right. It means that a single color, a single nozzle print can only be as large as 325 by 320 by 325. If you want to do two nozzles, two colors, more than one color, you can get that full 350, but you have to take some things into consideration. Here we go. I made this visual aid. This is their PEI sheet, and this is 350 by 320. And the reason that I can do this full build plate is because I utilized both nozzles. So I put down a square that was 350 by 320 by 5 millimeters tall, and using the paint tool, I painted green and yellow. It was just the PLA that I had loaded. And obviously the yellow is what's in the right nozzle because you can see it all the way over here. And the green is what's in the left nozzle, so that's why you can see it all the way over here. Now there's that 25 millimeter section on either side that's reserved for that side's nozzle. But if you do it right, you can get a full multicolor 3D print that is 350 by 320. That sucks if you want to print something 350, but you only want to use one color or one nozzle to do it. But there's a way that you can get away with it, and it's on the build plate. Let me show you. This is my logo, 3D Printing Nerd, and it is 350 millimeters wide. And it looks like it's two colors because it is fully 350. But here's what I did, is I put blue and white on the left nozzle on an AMS, and then I put blue and white on the right nozzle in an AMS. Same blue, same white. I cut my model in the middle, and then I assigned the colors appropriately, and then I hit print. But with a little bit of effort, you can get one color across the full 350 that's listed as the max for the X. It is a little confusing though, because listing the max means that Bambu Lab is advertising 350 on the X, but with a single nozzle print, it can only be as wide as 325. That's just how the physics work in this machine. And so 325 by 320 by 325 is going to be the max build volume of a single nozzle. I think when representing this machine, that's a little bit more fair in the comparisons. That does bring us to roughly a 320 millimeter cubed build volume. And I know everybody that was anticipating this machine was hoping for a bigger Bambu. They wanted a bigger Bambu. They wanted something to compete with the build volume of the Prusa XL, and you're just not getting it. PLA worked fine, as you would expect. I did this broom holder, but it's not able to grip, but the mechanical part of it is fascinating to watch, and I like it. I was able to print this one, and it has a captured little piece in there. So there you go. It holds a broom. The machine had these pandas as example prints on the internal memory, and both printed out really well. I believe I had Prusament Galaxy Black. For the black, the white was, I think I had a Bambu white and a regular white. They printed fine. Pretty good. I had to send an XRP chassis through. This is with carbon fiber PLA. And then I used that white that I was using with the pandas to paint it. So look, you can see the DigiKey logo, the Open Hardware logo, the Cornell logo. I tried painting the logos on the bottom, but it's a horror show. I don't believe it's an issue with the machine. I think that's just a slicer issue painting something like this. The quality is there. It's wonderful. Like I would use this in production to make these for Spark Fun. I also utilized specific support material. So with two different nozzles, you can send material A through one and material B through the other. That works really great if you're using a support specific material, which I did. Let's see if it comes off. Sweet. Yeah, support specific material. This is important because anytime you're utilizing a support specific material with a non-support specific material and you're sending it all through the same nozzle, it can compromise the quality of the prints. My buddy Knackers actually showed this off, and he was printing in PLA and using PETG supports, but sending it through the same nozzle. Because he wasn't purging enough, there was still a little bit of PETG that got mixed in with the PLA, so it compromised the structural integrity of his part. But if you have two different nozzles, then you can send each material through its own nozzle, which doesn't compromise the print quality and gets you something that looks really good. I had to go big and I had to get this Iron Giant printed. This is in a carbon fiber PLA. This is from Fotis Mint, and I mean, I love the heck out of it. I did embiggen this a bit. I used organic supports, and those came off pretty well. You can kind of see the undersides there. It looks fine. I could obviously dial in supports or use support specific material. For this one, I just full sent, bigger. I love it. Like look at this. I love it. I love this. I had to do a HueForge. Let's see if I can, there we go. Look at that. I had an AMS hooked up to each nozzle. So the machine would print this without me having to do anything manual. I think it looks pretty fantastic. The new Bambu slicer does allow for some material customization. So when you slice, there's like an economic mode and then a custom mode. So it can tell you what its best guess is for wasting the least amount of material. And it would group them depending on the materials you have. And so when I initially did this HueForge, I had a AMS hooked up to each side. So four materials possible in each side. And the automatic grouping put 5 materials in one side and 2 in the other. And I understand its algorithm said that was correct for wasting the least amount of material, but I had 2 AMSs hooked up and the machine knew it and the software knew it. And so that is a bug within Bambu Lab software. Luckily, I can just overwrite, self-group, and put things where I want them, and it gives me something beautiful like this. Like, look at that. I threw some PETG in there and did multicolor prints. So this is for my buddy Pooch Fest 25, his birthday party. This necklace was designed and then people printed it and then wore it to his little birthday soiree he had. I think it turned out pretty good. This is PETG, this planter. Look at that design. That is phenomenal. And this one, I did a fuzzy skin on. So it kind of increases the rigidity of it, and the planter has a track in the bottom, so it fits, there we go, fits right there. And there's your planter. With the AMS HT, I thought, let's throw some CF Nylon through it, some PACF. And I did it with the 0.8 millimeter nozzle. This is a clock spring design. It prints like this, and then this is supposed to open up. Unfortunately, everything is kind of fused, and I broke it. The layer lines, like look at that right there. It's like a whole bunch of just layer inconsistencies we're laying down. I don't do the most amount of printing with a 0.8 millimeter nozzle, but the rest of it printed gloriously like that. That looks absolutely great. So I don't know why it fused. It might have been the 0.4 millimeter layer height with the 0.8 millimeter nozzle. I can do more exploring with that because I do like that chonky look. So I was really happy with that. But again, I wanted this to work, so I did it in PLA. And this is probably one of the cleanest prints I've ever done. Look at that. Look at that. There's one issue right here. And if you can kind of see that, it's almost as if this broke loose a little bit and there's just a little wonky layer there. Look at that. So this is a model by Clock Spring, 0.4 millimeter nozzle, 0.2 millimeter layer height, printed on the H2D. And it's so clean. It's so clean. This is not just one of my favorite prints because I love Sven, fantastic designer, but probably one of the cleanest PLA prints I've ever done. Now, what about TPU? This is a flagship machine and it should print TPU. It does. This is their TPU 90. And I mean, it's nice and squishy, like it's a shoe. It printed like this on the build plate, held on for dear life, and just a day and a half, and it went. But one thing to mention, TPU feels like an afterthought for this machine. Like they got rigid materials taken care of, and someone in the back raised their hand and said, "What about TPU?" and they just had to figure it out. There is a hole in the back of the AMS HT that you can just slide the TPU out because it can't go through the normal one. It's a bypass for materials that might be a little bit too crunchy, also TPU, which might be a little bit too soft. There's a TPU hole in the back of the machine, and you feed it through the tube that's connected and then down in, and you can feed it into the right nozzle only. I tried that initially when I did the shoe, and it jammed. Like, it was no good. I had to take the head out and clean it out, and it was jammed. I talked to our Bambu rep, and we just had to figure it out. And so what I did was take the AMS HT and put it on a shelf in my garage that was right behind the TPU hole in the H2D, and then it fed it straight in, and that worked for this. It removed all resistance whatsoever. If that didn't work, then you can take the top lid off, stack some boxes on top, and then a roller, and make the TPU go straight down into the nozzle. It worked. It did work, and it looks good. But every time I think about TPU on this machine, I don't want to do it.
No, thank you, though.
And I feel like for a flagship machine, maybe TPU isn't what their end consumers were going to use. I'm just trying to think of who the end user is. If you do a lot of flexible printing, I would like to know if struggle is worth the end product for you. And if it is, or if it isn't, just comment down below. Now, let's talk about the two different AMS units that Bambu is releasing, the AMS2 Pro and the AMS HT right here. Both of these AMS units have active air vents that will open and close. When you're drying material in either of these, those vents then can control the air within them to make sure it's drying appropriately. On both, the filament inlet is now ceramic, which is very abrasive resistant, and I'm really glad to see that. The feed motor for both is now a high torque servo motor, and it's probably one of the coolest things ever because it feeds the material and retracts the material so much faster. It's almost like these units have more confidence. Repairability on the AMS2 Pro has been increased as well. So if you remember the old AMS, if you had filament stuck in one of the PTFE tubes underneath, you had to open it up and figure it out and then put it back together. The new AMS2 Pro has all of the PTFE exposed just under the spools, so no more taking it apart to clear a jam or a broken piece of filament in your AMS. Thank you.
Finally.
The AMS2 Pro will dry up to 65°C, and the AMS HT will dry up to 85°C. So for those materials that might need a little bit of extra heat in order to promote drying, the AMS HT has you covered. Both of these have active air vents to kind of keep the air inside good, and both will rotate material on the spool to help promote better drying. So you can disengage it from the ceramic inlets and then tuck it into the side, and then it will rotate the material as it's drying to promote an even drying of the material. Like I said earlier, the H2D will support up to 25 colors/materials. And my note from my Bambu rep said 4 AMS2 Pros and 8 AMS HTs can be hooked to a single nozzle, which gives you 24, and then the other nozzle can use an external spool to give you the 25 that you need. I was able to hook one AMS up to each nozzle, and I didn't go further. There's something called the Bambu 4-in-1 PTFE adapter. You can get it from Bambu Lab, and that will allow you to hook up more than one AMS per nozzle. I didn't have a chance to get one of those, so I didn't get to do any experimenting. I know you can get that from the Bambu site, or you could probably print one, is my guess. So this is the laser edition of the H2D, and you can buy this, just the laser edition, or you can buy the H2D, and then there's an upgrade path to the laser edition. Laser has some extra stuff in it, so let's just go over that. So the laser on this machine, it uses the new Bambu Suite software, and at time of filming, only the PC version was available. There was no Mac version yet. I used it. It was simple. It wasn't fully featured. It did what it needed to do, but again, this is an introductory software, and I get the feeling Bambu is going to fill it out over time. So the laser edition has the laser safety windows It has an air assist pump in the back that actually has its own firmware. So when you go to update firmware, it checks the firmware on that. And it has a bird's eye camera system. You know, in like the HueForge, as an example. You can put a piece of material in, you close the lid, and there's a camera right in the center that can see the material. So when you're using the HueForge software, you can properly place your image. The bird's eye camera system in this is the same thing. It will take a picture of the material and allow you to place it on the material in the software, and then it'll put it on there. And it's a really cool tool. There's this separate build plate that it includes to do calibration. So you put that in, and it will look at all these really tiny little QR codes and go back and forth and just make sure that if it moves 1 millimeter, that translates to an actual physical 1 millimeter. That's cool. There's 2 different laser attachments that are available. There's a 10-watt laser attachment and a 40-watt laser attachment. Both of those just slide onto the head. So you take the cover off the head, you slide on the laser attachment. There's a lever on the side that locks it into place, and then there's a little cable you plug in the back of the head, and you're good to go. The machine auto recognizes it and tells you if it needs to be calibrated and steps you through the process, just like setting it up anew, but with a brand new head. And I like that. The air assist tube, remember that pump I told you about, the air assist pump? There's this tube you then plug into the head so it can do the air assist at the end of the laser module to blow particulates out of the way. There's also the external air filter. It's over there on the side. It's just like what you think. So when doing lasers, this pops up, and rather than going through the filtration, it bypasses that because it's just gonna send all the air out, and then you can send it outside, or you can get one of those external filters to send it into that so you can do your lasering indoors without having access to a window. And that's perfect because I don't have access to a window in here.
That could have been bad.
There is a laser-specific build plate. In fact, there's specific build plates for any of the new functionality that is offered within this machine. It looks like that. It's got slats, so you can put the material on top, and so it can laser through. So the 10 watt, I use that. It's great for engraving things, but man, it is not a cutting laser. That is for sure. I know you can if you slow it down, but when you slow down the laser, it's more like burning things, and things can catch fire. There was one project I was trying to do with some bamboo wood, and it kept pausing because there was too much smoke. It would detect the smoke and pause the laser just in case, and then it would keep going. But at one point, the fire alarm went off. And when it does that, here's what's really cool. When it senses, hey, there's a fire, it shuts the top flap, it closes the back, it tries to starve it of oxygen, and it goes wee, 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 and it sets off an alarm. And I liked seeing that, because when we talk about lasers and new people getting into lasers, there's a lot of different safety concerns compared to 3D printing. And being able to have the sensors to be able to detect fires and smoke and all of that accurately, I think is huge. It doesn't take the responsibility away from the human, it just lets the human better operate the machine, in my opinion. You know, I did use the 10 watt to cut some cork, and it's a little coaster, it's a little cork coaster. I love it. So 10 watts can do that. 10 watts isn't gonna really cut through wood. You know, 10 is gonna be good in engraving. 10 is gonna cut things like cork, cardboard, paper, stuff like that. I like the 10 watt laser for that. So then I threw on the 40 watt laser. 40 is gonna be closer to what a lot of the hobby lasers are using. It's right there alongside with the HueForge laser, and it did this. I like it. Like it looks good. It was able to burn through the bamboo. So this was actually the piece of bamboo that I used with the 10 watt laser to try to do this, and it set off the fire alarm. I just used the bird's eye camera, positioned this lower on the wood, and then printed this. Or I'm sorry, I lasered this. Silly me.
Laser.
And it looks good. And it's like a little birthday card. So the idea being, well, let's do it right here. And that comes off, and then I slide that like this. And there we go, look at that. So this project was done with the 40 watt laser. The 40 watt laser is gonna do things like cut acrylic. It's gonna cut 3 millimeter wood. Bambu has a lot of materials now, consumables that they can offer that isn't just 3D printing material. I would imagine, just like with HueForge, along with selling a machine that can engrave and cut wood and acrylic and other materials, they are going to sell those materials. So get out your pocketbooks. So now let's talk about the digital cutter. So the digital cutter is like a Cricut blade, and you put material down on a special build plate that is sticky, and you run the cutter. And people have been doing this for a long time, creating all sorts of sellable things on Etsy and Shopify and all of that. My wife has a Cricut and does a lot of vinyl cutting with it to make t-shirts for like sports teams and stuff. So I enlisted her help in using this cutter because Bambu sent along some vinyl samples and I chose blue. Of course I chose blue. And I thought, let's make a t-shirt. So my wife went to the secondhand store, found a t-shirt, and then we took my 3D Printing Nerd logo and I brought it into the Bambu suite, and it was a PNG. So then I traced it to create vector lines. And then she reminded me to mirror the logo, because when you're cutting it, you have to mirror it so it's backwards, so that when you put it on a shirt or whatever, and then after that, let's see, it cut it out, and it did a great job in doing it. It was really fast, and it was fun to watch. We used her weeding tools from the Cricut to get out the material we didn't want. And then we took that and we put it on a t-shirt and then put it in a heat press. She makes sure to center it all. And I made a shirt. I made a shirt. So just like with the laser, there are certain considerations to take. You've got essentially 325 by 319 or 320 to play with. So, I mean, my shirt, it's about that big. It didn't take up the whole build plate. It was fun, it worked, and I was actually more excited about that than I was the laser attachments. Now we got to talk about, there's still more.
There's a lot going on.
Now we have to talk about the digital marker attachment, and that works by taking out the blade from the cutter and shoving in this other piece that can hold, in this case, a fine tip marker. And what I did was brought some artwork into Bambu Suite, and I traced it again because I wanted vector lines. And in tracing it, it gave me an image. And then using the bird's eye camera, I placed it on some paper and I made it nice and big. And I said, go ahead and draw it. And it went about doing it. Like from the start to the end, it only took a few minutes. But when it was done, it made that. Like, that's good. I like that. That's good. As far as use case scenarios, I'm not one that does a lot of drawing, nor do I do a lot of digital drawing. I don't know where this is going to come in handy, but it comes with the cutter, I believe. So if you have it and you have an idea and this is the way to implement your idea, you're now set. Well, why don't we wrap this first look up, eh? It was fun getting this machine. I was really happy I was able to get one of the new Bambu machines and get some use on it so I could tell you about it in my own words. No money changed hands. They don't need to see this video beforehand. They didn't even require me to post anything, that level of stuff. If you came here wondering about firmware questions, this is their flagship machine. If they said they were gonna do something with their firmware, they're absolutely gonna do it with this machine. And if that's not copacetic with your views, you should vote with your wallet. As far as price goes, at time of filming, it's not available. Hey, Joel from the future. We finally have pricing information. We didn't have it originally when filming happened, but now that it's out and we have access to it, I could kind of break it down. The H2D, just the machine, $1,899 USD. The H2D combo with AMS 2 Pro altogether, $2,199 USD. The full laser combo for the 10-watt laser. So this AMS 2 Pro, I believe, the cutter attachment and the 10-watt laser and everything that goes along with that, $2,799 USD. And finally, the H2D laser full combo. So that's everything at the buffet. That's the H2D laser That's going to be the AMS 2 Pro. That's going to be the 10-watt laser, the 40-watt laser, the cutter attachment, everything you need as far as this goes, $3,499 USD. Questions that I still have that probably won't be answered until this video comes out are the price of the AMS HT. I don't know that. I also don't know if the external exhaust system over there for the laser system is a part of the combo or is sold separately. And really, we don't have any information at time of filming right now as far as what upgrades will cost. So taking this to this sort of thing and how much separately 10-watt and 40-watt lasers will cost, the cutter module will cost, stuff like that. I also don't have any pricing on the vinyl or the wood materials that Bambu is offering. I'm sorry, we just don't have that yet.
I have no idea.
There you go. There you go. That's all of the pricing information we have at this time. Get back to it. I was told the AMS 2 Pro and the AMS HT will both be backwards compatible with the X1 3D printers. I don't know about the P1 3D printers. It's just gonna take a software update and then those will work with those. But again, if you're worried about firmware and you're not updating your X1 carbons because of the firmware that Bambu is issuing, then I don't know if backwards compatibility will be available to you. That's still up in the air. I think Bambu has a good machine on their hands. I think the H2D is a natural progression, and I think it positions themselves in a decent space. It's interesting to look at because if you look at Ultimaker, it was for the consumer, and then they started to put out the 3, which was more prosumer, and then they started doing S5, S7, S8, and it was now no longer a consumer machine. It was an expensive professional machine. Whether or not Bambu is going that direction, I don't know, but the H2D does position themselves really well for next iterations to be more targeted towards professional industrial users carrying a professional or industrial price tag. I do also find it interesting that Bambu Lab is introducing new add-ons. I don't know how much those were asked for, but it does give them an opportunity to offer more consumables for sale and to get more of your money. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because they already provide filament for their filament machines. So it would make sense to provide material for their lasers and material for their cutters. Whether or not they will provide pens and paper for the marker, I don't know that yet. And finally, just I don't know if everybody's going to be happy. Most of the people waiting for this machine thought it was going to be bigger. Some people were expecting the second coming, essentially, with this machine. Dr. Tao himself, when I interviewed him, talked about these technologies that we hadn't seen in 3D printers yet. And when the H2D came to my doorstep and I opened it up, I was like, oh, look at Ultimaker 3. We've seen lasers with 3D printers before, just look at Snapmaker. We've seen CNC mills with 3D printer, like with the Z-Morph. Markers being used with 3D printers. I did a stream with the pen attachment that Andrew Sink made for the Ender 3. There's good technology in this machine. There's upgrades in this machine. It performs incredibly well, but it seems like it's a logical next step, not a leapfrog in terms of functionality or offering. I think the laser and the digital cutter and the marker stuff, I think that's fine. I don't know how many people were wanting that over a bigger Bambu. And when you look at essentially 320 cubed, that's much, much smaller than the Prusa XL, which is what people were expecting this to compete with. And lastly, a whole bunch of people are gonna have this machine and make content on it. And I encourage you to watch all of those videos, queue them up, watch them. I'm not gonna be able to cover everything and neither is everybody else. And so get informed about this and learn about it and ask questions. And now that it's out, I can answer questions and we can have a conversation about what this machine is, what it means, and what we can do with it. And really, thanks for making this far, because if you did, you're awesome. Don't forget to hug each other more, fight for a cause you believe in, print all the things, and as always, high five.